If you have questions, ask me while we're going through it. This is a lot of information in one quick hour. Has anyone done the webinar, the hour-long live webinar? Okay, I'll show you where to find all this great information. It's a good kind of follow-up because you're going to be a little overwhelmed the first time you hear this because we're going over contributions, we're going over investments, we're going through logging in. That's a lot to cram into 1 hour. So ask as we go through, but the most important thing I can teach you today is what you put in and what your employer puts in. If you don't understand that, you're not going to understand hybrid. You're not going to make changes to your account. So I want you to embrace this. I am a big fan of hybrid. There are a lot of great features to hybrid. Not all of us are going to get 30 years out of the pension plan. Hybrid is going to give you more portability and more control. It's going to have an investment account. So the old school employees put their money into the pension and then they can save on their own with no match. You have a 3.5% match on the table. So you've got more investment side of hybrid, but your pension is a little lower. The multiplier is a little lower, so taking advantage of that is really important. How many of you have had a 401k type of plan before? Okay, then you guys are ahead of the curve. Hybrid is really a pension and a 401k type of plan called a hybrid 457 under one retirement plan. So it can be confusing. I had a lady yesterday, she goes, I just have too many buckets of money. Well, I don't think I hear a lot of people say too many buckets of money. It's a good thing. You know, you've got your pension, which you can't control, but you have these other buckets that you can take out how you need to in retirement. So it gives you flexibility in retirement for emergencies and other things that you need to spend your money on. All right, so we're going to go over the plan in general. We'll talk about setting the framework of why we save for retirement. Then we'll move into how to get logged in and make changes if you haven't already. And then we'll go in the investment account. However, I have a whole hour-long webinar on the investment. So if you're really interested in diving into that, some people say, that's too confusing. Some people want to engage it a little bit more. I understand. My husband's one of those who gets bored when I start talking about it. But we do have a whole hour class on that if you want to learn a little more. Then we'll move into resources, so logging in and the difference between your two logins and what you can do in the two different logins. All right, so we all know we're hybrid in here? Everyone for sure? If you're hired on or after January 1st of 2014 and not in a hazard duty position, okay? So again, hybrid has two different plans in one. You've got a defined benefit piece and a defined contribution piece. I'm going to keep coming into this handout that you have, that I handed you out. And in here is this chart. I'm going to keep coming back to this for the first section of this presentation. And the 4% mandatory in this chart at the top is what's going to the defined benefit. So if you look at my handout here, I took advantage of that blank space that says defined benefit, and I wrote the term pension. Most people say defined benefit, what is that? But they hear the word pension and they go, I know what a pension is. Salary, age, years of service. I get my monthly check, right? As long as I'm here at least, and I wrote down here 5 years, which we'll talk about vesting. Okay, so that's your foundation. You don't handle that. VRS manages that. VRS is doing the investment on that side. How do you get that to be a bigger check? Get a salary increase, get a promotion, do more years of service. So people ask me all the time, I want to put more money into the pension. No, you don't. You want to get a raise. You want to do more years of service. That's what's going to bring that monthly check up. Okay? These are two different plans, but two different logins. That's also really important because people will go to the website, log into one side, and think they've logged into everything. Two different passwords, but two different checks in retirement. The defined contribution, which is your 1% mandatory in this chart, and your employer column, your 1% match, dollar for dollar match, goes into the defined contribution side. So I always tell folks, if you think about the words, defined benefit, automatic benefit, can't change it. Contribution, you decide what you do or don't want to contribute to that side. And based on what you contribute here, your employer is going to give you more match. Okay? You're managing the investments. You have the more control on this side. All right, so not to be too confusing, but if you've looked at your statement or logged in, you've noticed you have two different pots of money, right? Maybe three if you're contributing to Wendell's plan in the city's supplemental plan. What is the difference? The hybrid 401A is your 1% mandatory in all of your employer match. So I always tell folks, again, if you look at the words, don't concentrate on the numbers. That's your match money. Why did they put your 1% mandatory in the match pot? Because of annual limits. We didn't want forced contributions to count towards annual limits. So technically, the 457 is all your voluntarily deferred compensation. Based on what you defer here, your employer defers more over here. This slide can be a little complicated. We are going to get to the chart, which will be a little bit more easier to follow along. But this is if you're more of a reading type and not a chart type. Everyone's a different learner, right? But basically, your first 1% voluntary is also matched dollar for dollar. From 1.5 to 4, they still match, but it's 50 cents on the dollar. But again, we're going to go through that in here. All right, we have some videos online. I'm going to show you where you can view those. The one that they have in this session is about eligibility. We've got some other topics about contributions. So let's say you get a raise in the summer and you forgot what they match. You just log in, watch the video, and you can go ahead and review what they do. We also have one on navigating the website. That's a good one. If you haven't been in there and you don't know where to click to change your investments or do anything like that, there's a whole 5-minute video on that. And then there's one also on the investments. Okay, so check those out. I'll show you when we have the screenshots where to find these videos.
So you're saying if we get a raise, we should increase our contribution too?
I say anytime you can. All free money, I always work on my free money. The first thing I do when I get hired, my mom died at 62. My goal is to retire at 55, work part-time at the garden center. I know I need a lot of money for health care for me personally because I'm private sector. Every chance I get, I'm increasing. Even now that I'm definitely for hybrid, once to get to that match, get the free money off the table. But then also after that, the city supplemental plan, I mean, I'm saving more than 15% of my salary. They don't match it. I just want to save for retirement because it's a big thing to save for. So yeah, every chance you get. If you know, and we'll talk about too, timing. It's a quarterly payroll change with hybrid. So we've got till March 15th for the next payroll deadline, so we'll talk about some of that timing too as well. But yeah, especially until you're at the max, every chance you get, you want to give it a little bump. Raise time is always a good time because you don't feel the full impact. I've gotten in the rhythm where I split my raise. So if it's like a 2% raise, I increase my retirement savings or my daughter's college fund 1%, and I increase my budget 1%. Save a little, spend a little. So, all right, so retirement needs, there's no magic balance. People ask me all the time, how much do I need in my deferred comp? Well, everyone has different goals in retirement. So do you have a mortgage in retirement? Are you helping out with the grandkids and living for free? Or are you traveling by cruise ship, by air? A lot of different goals in there. So really it's now an income replacement ratio, 70 to 90% of your current working income in retirement. If you've logged into MyVRS, they have a great retirement planner that will help you do this. So it actually pulls in your salary, it pulls in your pension, it pulls in what you're doing voluntary-wise. If you're doing the city supplemental plan, you can add that balance, or IRAs, you can add those balances and set your year for retirement and what percent you want to supplement in retirement. 70 to 90% is kind of the swing. I'd like 100% personally if I can get there. But again, that mortgage is a big factor in there. Once you reach 65, there's a 25% chance you or your spouse will live till 96. So a lot of us are working part-time in retirement. You know, the garden center sounds great, but it's also going to bring income in and hopefully get me a good discount. I'll learn a little, get out of the house, have a little structure in retirement. I've got a lot of retirees consulting or opening their own services business, stuff like that. Social Security, 2017 average, not that much, is it? A little over 16 grand. So these were all meant to be supplements. The more you save on your own, the more you can comfortably retire. Income from your pension, salary, age, and years of service, and plan. Every plan has a different multiplier. So plan 1 has the highest multiplier. Hybrid has the lower multiplier. So are you taking advantage of that cash match to make up that difference? So again, with hybrid, you have 2 different checks coming in retirement. You've got your defined benefit, which is your pension, and then this you draw out how you need to. So I have some folks who retire, they go do something part-time, and they're not touching this account right away. It's still invested, and tax deferred until they want some money out of the account. So this is the control side, even in retirement. This comes in monthly. This you can decide what you need. But once it's gone, it's gone. Maybe defined benefits from other employers. So a lot of retired military come to work for VRS covered employment or someone who had years of service in another state. Social Security, when do you plan to draw Social Security? Are you going to take it early at 62 and reduce it, or are you going to wait till full age? Sounds like you guys have a great healthcare system in retirement. I've got a lot of people who always are thinking about VRS, which is great, but they're only a supplement. So they get their unreduced benefit and they go, oh yeah, I'm going to retire at 55. Well, what about Social Security? What about Medicare 65? Thinking about those factors ahead of time. Medicare kicks in at 65? 65 is Medicare. Social Security you can draw at 62 reduced if you're born after 1960 at 67. And you can actually log into SSA.gov and then, like, let's say I want to retire at 65, so I'm not going to draw Social Security at 62 or 67. I can log in and look at what my reduction would be for 65. A lot of folks, have you guys ever logged into Social Security? Okay, good. A lot of the people that I talked to, they didn't know that they could log into that. So, personal savings and investments, go ahead and help yourself to one of each of those before you get comfortable. Personal savings and investments, anything you're doing outside of your employer. So a lot of people have stock accounts, IRAs, things like that. So definitely over here, what's coming into play as we're retiring younger and living longer is that supplemental income. Again, working on our own terms, on our own time, not 5 days a week, right? But even for me, with my early retirement age that I want to hit, I've shaved off part of this leg and replaced it with personal savings. I have to say things have changed a little since I started 12 years ago on this plan. My new hires coming in are saving more than ever, especially because they're seeing people struggle with retirement and the health insurance and all that other stuff. So things have kind of changed. We're learning that we need to plan for ourselves and not let someone else plan for our retirement. All right, so that's kind of setting the framework for what we need to be thinking about and what we can't forget about if we're not at the full maximum match. So you've got your mandatory and your voluntary contributions. So we're going to go back to my trusty little chart here, because this is what you're going to see when you go home tonight, or you come back to this information later. So your 4% mandatory comes into the pension, the defined benefit side, salary, age, years of service. 1% mandatory comes into the investment account, and your employer matches that dollar for dollar. So 5% is your baseline, okay? Everyone's doing 5%, whether you're plan 1, plan 2, or hybrid. Yours is just broken into 2 different components. Just like my 401k, the more you put in, the more they match. So my first goal for all new hires is the 1%, because your employer is also matching that dollar for dollar, which would take you to 6%. Yes, getting the full match is my end goal, but not all of us can start out of the gate doing 9% total, right? So your first 1% by choice on top of the 5 is matched dollar for dollar. From 1.5 to 4, it tapers to 50%. 50 cents on the dollar. They're still matching, and they're still matching your first 1% dollar for dollar. So what they're showing you in this chart is what you put in and what your employer matches. My simplified version would be to draw a line under the 1%, above the line write 100% match, below the line from here on down write 50% match. That's a little more simplified for me to think of. If you're mathematical, this might make more sense. Okay, not to quiz you, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, okay? So if you're maxing out hybrid, you've got 9% total going to your retirement plan, right? 4% goes to the pension, 5% goes to the investment account. Apples to oranges, take the pension out of it. My 4% voluntary, my 1% mandatory is 5%. What total is my employer matching to my 5%?
4.
Plus? All right. Then let's back it up, because I want you guys to understand it, because if you don't understand it, you're not going to increase it. So with my voluntary, okay, so back here, my 1% mandatory comes in, my employer, you're right, matches it dollar for dollar with 1%. Building on top of that, okay, I can do anywhere from 0 to 4%. My first 1% voluntary is matched dollar for dollar. It's a 50% match from down there. I'm doing 4% plus my 1%. That's 5% coming out of my pocket. What percent total is my employer putting into the pocket? 3.5%. The reason I bring that up is usually, to be honest, people say 2.5% because they look at the bottom of this chart and they say, oh, it's a 2.5% in the employer column. I would circle the 1 up here because it's easy to forget this 1% up here. That 2.5 is on top of that 1% mandatory match. So it's a 3.5% match you have on the table that Plan 1, Plan 2 doesn't have. But you got to understand it to take advantage of it, right? So it's a 3.5% total match to your 4 and your 1, your 5%. Any questions on that? That's the most important takeaway you're going to have today, besides how to log in and change it, of course.
Well, if we've set it up for our 4% max, and then we get a raise, it's not 4% of the raised amount, we have to go in and increase it.
So that's a great point. So let's say I'm already doing the 4% voluntary. I'm maxed out on hybrid. Anything additional, I'm going to do the city's 457 through ICMARC directly, and that's Wendell. He's sitting at the table in there. So unfortunately, 9% total is what you can do to hybrid. Like I said, if you can save more, great. You got your group plan, so people say, well, why would I do that over my IRA? You've got your city negotiating your fees. You're under a group plan, plus also higher annual limits. And then he's out here, I think, once or twice a month, meeting one-on-one as well. So yeah, once you're at the 4%, anything above and over that, you're going to do to the city's 457. And we'll talk about, too, the 457 has no penalty at any age, which is a huge advantage, too.
But the question still remains, if I set it up for 4% and we get a 1% raise, do I have to go in and increase it? Or does it?
No, it automatically. But it won't increase your contribution to 5%.
Right.
It'll still be at the 4%, but anything that comes out percentage-wise is on your gross salary. So if your gross salary increases, you don't have to do anything. It automatically changes. And then the match changes. Yep. Any other questions on this? All right. We'll skip over this. Everyone's already been here for a little bit, right? This is for brand new people who are new. They're not in the system yet, and they want to set up their voluntary. But I know some of you have already been here for a little while. This is like the first week out of the gate. All right, so this is my favorite slide because it kind of hits at home a little bit what we just went over. So if you flip the page from the chart, you have it in color in front of you here, okay? This is a $3,000 monthly income with a 6% rate of return over 30 years. You can see definitely my biggest jump mandatory to 1% because it's dollar for dollar match. 2, 3, and 4. That $248,000 does not include the pension. So the pension comes in monthly based on salary, age, years of service, and then you have this $248,000 in your investment account. You could go blow it on a boat, but it's gone and it's income, or you can take it out as you need to in retirement. This also doesn't put a raise in there. So this picture could look totally different, hopefully over 30 years, right? If you put even just a 1% annual raise in there. But this really helps me show you the difference that they are totally two separate pots of money, and they're calculated two totally different ways. All right, Smart Step is there for someone who has a goal they want to get to. They're not yet at the 4%, and they want to increase, for example, 0.5% every year until they get to their 4% maximum or turn it off. So that's called the Smart Step. You might have seen it when you're logged in and you click on Change Your Contributions. It is an option on there for you to take advantage of. Again, my thing is if you can be disciplined when you get raises, that's a great time because it kind of softens the deduction, right? All right, so auto escalation. This will only impact you if you're not at the 4%. So if you're at the 4% voluntary, this is different than Smart Step. This is personally based. This is plan-wide, okay? This is the 3-year anniversary of the plan. So last one was in 2017. The next one will be January 1 of 2020. If you're at the 4%, you won't be impacted, but it is a 0.5% auto escalation, meaning it will bump you up 0.5% more. You will have a window to opt out, which I hope you don't. It's there to help you grow your retirement. You can also set your own. So let's say you want to jump up 1% instead of 0.5%. So you will have that window that you can go in. This will ramp up in the fall. You'll get postcards in the mail. If you're at 4%, you won't see much on it, but if you're not at 4% yet, you're going to get postcards, a whole bunch of information on it, and where to go to make changes to it. Okay, so it's not forced, but it's a pretty good little shove to start saving a little bit more for retirement. Any questions on that? This too, I find a lot of times if people have been hybrid for a while, they log in and go, I would have never picked 0.5%. Well, they were probably auto-escalated in 2017. All right, pre-tax versus after-tax. This plan is tax deferred. So if you've maxed out the 4% voluntary, you've technically lowered your taxable income 9% when it comes to filing your taxes. Why does that matter? So here I make $30,000 a year. I'm putting $1,800 into my hybrid. It lowers my taxable income for Uncle Sam to $28,200. I'm also paying taxes on that amount instead of the $30,000. So I'm not feeling the full amount out of my paycheck. So it lowers your taxable income. You don't feel the full amount, but it's not tax-free. It's tax-deferred, of course. So we got to watch those large withdrawals in retirement. We still are watching our income in retirement as well because your pension's income, tax-deferred money's income. Okay. Any questions on pre-tax? All right. So the vesting schedule is faster for this plan. So I pointed out and I wrote down 5 years under the defined benefit. Let's go over that first. And then the vesting period for this plan is right next to it. Okay. The defined benefit piece. Your 4% mandatory. You always keep your member contributions. We're talking about the money your employer's investing in you. Okay. You leave before 5 years, you can get your 4% back plus an interest rate. You don't have to take a refund. That's the thing I hear when people get rehired is, I thought I had to take a refund, I took money out, now I'm starting all over. You can have a break in service and come back. You pick up right where you left off if you didn't take a refund, and it grandfathers you into your plan. So if there's a hybrid plan 2 down the road, you're picking up the plan you understand. Okay? If you're here 5 years or longer, you will be what we call vested, meaning that you can qualify for that monthly check at retirement age. I also tell folks you don't have to make decisions right away. You're still earning that interest rate while separated. So if you're going to go see if you might come back, because I have some people who take 5 years off and come back to service, and then they just pick up right where they left off.
Yeah. So what I did, I worked at ODU early in my career, and when I started with the city, I bought back that plan. So does that change anything?
It doesn't change your plan, but it will add years of service for your vesting and for your calculation. And Miss Macklin is out at the table too, so she will have her information up if you want her to check your history or anything like that too as well. She works on the defined benefit side. I work on the investment side. But yes, so that you just pick up where you left. So the purchase of prior service, I'll get a little bit into the weeds. I don't handle that side, but you have an option if you've got part-time service or full-time service or military time. You can purchase the prior service. It won't change your plan back, but it will help you vest faster and add years of service to the calculation. And you can always get the quote before you decide. A little bit of sticker shock, right? And the earlier you do it, the better off you are. You don't want to wait, since you've had 5 years, 10 years of raises and then look into it. All right, so defined contribution. You're here 2 years, you keep half the match. 3 years, 75%. 4 years, you're 100% vested on the investment side, meaning you keep all of the cash match. When you are logged into your account under Overview All Balances, it will show you your total balance and show you what dollar amount is vested. When you get your statement, it will show you what amount is vested. So if you're not quite sure if you've met that 3-year mark, that kind of stuff. This is also, too, if I have someone who's married to the military and they're not going to be here 5 years. They've got 4-year orders. At least they have something that they can get invested and then roll to their next state wherever they go. Because this plan is also portable as well if someone leaves service. Okay. So again, we're only talking about the money your employer puts in. This is getting into a lot of the detail, but taking a refund on the defined benefit stops everything on vesting. However, let's say I'm vested on the DCP side, the investment side. I can take a refund on that if I'm separated, but it won't impact my pension. These are things, too, that you will reach out to us, and we will help guide you through as well. The problem is sometimes people don't reach out, and then they go, I didn't know that. So always make some phone calls to VRS and to our team as well. All right, incoming rollovers. This plan accepts incoming rollovers from any of these tax-deferred retirement plans. So 401As, 401K, 457, 403Bs, TSPs, and traditional IRAs can roll into the hybrid 457 side. So they don't go into the match side, they'll go into your voluntary contribution side. Okay? I always tell folks, just compare your fees, compare your expenses. A lot of times people have like 3 401Ks out there. They don't realize they're still paying for those plans that are open in some shape or form, right? And I'll go over the fees so you can compare them here. So the supplemental plan we talked about, the City of Chesapeake has a 457 through ICMARC that you can contribute to. So just because you're at the maximum with hybrid, but you do want to max out hybrid first because that's your match. So you want to get your employer's free money first, and then you can do the supplemental plan. Separation of service is the easiest way to take money out. There's no way to take money out unless you have rolled over money. I feel horrible when someone calls me and says, I want to take a loan. No loans, no hardships. This is the hybrid plan. It is attached to a defined benefit piece. So separation of service, then you have the options, but you don't have to draw money out. In-service distributions, again, only allowed from rolled over assets. So an old 401K you rolled in, something like that, it would be a distribution. Here's the one great benefit too, I would say, with the 457. Fits right into my plan of wanting to walk out at 55 and go work at the garden center. No penalty at any age. So I hear it all the time. I'm waiting till 59 and a half. If we save enough, we can set our own clock. But then also the 401A cash match has a 10% penalty before 59 and a half, but it has an exception that fits right into my plan. As long as you're 55 or older the year you separate VRS covered employment, there's no penalty on the match as well. So some nice advantages over the 401K world that has that straight, and IRA is the straight penalty. Everyone good so far? As good as we can with a lot of information. All right, well, let's have some fun. Let's talk about the investment world. How many of you have opened your year-end statements yet? All right, they're in your mailboxes. So I will give you guys the buffer. We've had a great run on this market, right? How many of you had money in the market in 2008 in a 401k type of plan? Okay, let's go back there. I know you don't want to, but here we go. We've had a great long run on this market, right? I had a phone call. I lost 3%. Well, 3% was nothing compared to 2008. I always make the joke, no one calls me when they get good statements, but after the 6th bad statement, people start to call me. At that point, it's happened, right? So think about it this way. Your house loses $50,000 worth of value. Is it a true loss if you're not selling that house right now? No, it's just a value loss, right? When's the best time to buy a house if you don't have one to sell when the market's where? Down, right? Low. Get in and get a deal as long as you have time, though, to sit in the house and wait for the value to come back. That was the mistake of 08. And I see it all the time. They set it up, they get enrolled, they get hired, and they're still investing like they're 20 and they're 55 years old. They've never changed it along the way. And that's what happened in 08. No one was looking at things when they were good, and then the market takes a huge decline, and I'm retiring in a few months. Okay? Know your time frame, very important. But also remind yourself every time you get paid, you're buying. That's also what I saw a lot of people forgot. They concentrate on the loss statement, and they forget they're getting more bang for their buck in a bad market. And if they got time, they worry about where the value is when they're retiring and using the money. So just get ready. We had year-end statements. If you log in, I invite you to expand the data out, because right now it's only year-to-date data. So when you log in and it shows you this little graph, it's only going to be since January 1. You can change the time periods. So you can change the time period to all available and look since you've started this plan. And even rate of return wise, you can change your rate of return instead of just looking at year to date and look at all available. So I definitely always invite people to look more long term than just since January 1. Okay? So we've got everything from conservative, moderate, aggressive for you to choose from. I never want someone discouraged from saving because of the market. But with low risk comes low what? Return. So just being realistic that you're here to get your match, and inflation is going to be your risk factor because CDs are not making as much as inflation right now. So we've got 3 options. Has anyone noticed what they're in yet? All right. Like I said, this is when my husband starts glazing over on me. But this is your money, so it's important to understand it. BlackRock has been doing it for you, so I want you to pull out this colorful chart. You've got 3 different options, so I want you to think about how much time you do or don't want to devote, depending on how much time you want to be logging in and making changes along the way. So the default option, if you haven't done anything, has been one of these portfolios based on age 65. So they've looked at your date of birth, your year, and put you in the closest target year to 65 years old. Kind of a middle point, Medicare we talked about. Now, so yes, 2060 is a year. That's for my 20-year-olds coming in. They're going to be working until 2060. But these are fully diversified portfolios. If you look down here, large cap, mid cap, small cap, international, real estate, commodities, and 2 different types of bonds. But the 2060 for the 20-year-olds is only going to have 1% in bonds. Bonds are like the kiddie ride, stocks are like the big kid roller coaster. So they're going to be more risky the younger you are, and gradually watch your risk as you move closer to the retirement side. Every quarter, they're gradually making those changes. Every month, they are rebalancing your portfolio. So if you don't even want to learn what rebalancing means, they've been doing it every month on your behalf. But they're keeping you in your percentages to keep you in your risk factor and make sure funds that are earning more than others aren't taking over more of the portfolio. But these are the percentages that go to each different investment depending on which target year you're in. I think it's a great visual to show you how it's gradually changing. So when 2020 hits, that will turn into retirement portfolio and we'll tag a 2065 on the back end. So it's always a moving pathway. All right, so that's why if you open your statement and you go, I didn't pick that target date, you can always change them. You can also manipulate them. I had one gentleman, he said, well, I'm 50, but I'm just starting to save for retirement. I'm starting with 0.0. I want the 2060 for a little bit. I understand it's more risky, and then I will change it. So you can manipulate them. You want more risk, you can always move further out. You want less risk, you can move closer up or add some of our capital preservation. Okay? These are also things that we can talk about when we meet one-on-one if you sign up for one of the appointments as well. So if this is a little overwhelming for you, that's why we have those appointments. All right, so help me do it pathway. I also handed you out this paperwork that has the past 10-year returns. This is like a horse racing form. It's in the past, right? We don't know what the future holds when it comes to the market. But it shows you the historical data. Since hybrid hasn't been around 10 years, but these investments have. So it can show you some of that historical data here. Now, the second fund from the bottom and the third fund from the bottom, stable value and money market. Those are our capital preservation. So if someone is looking for something, they just want their match and they know they have no comfort level with the market, we do have an option, but they have to go ahead and change it. It's not the default. But again, like we said, low risk, low return, but I never want someone discouraged from saving because of the market. You can mix these with targets. So if I have someone who says, well, I want money in the market, but I don't want it all in the market, you don't have to stay in one pathway. So if I want some stability or money market and then I want the rest in the managed portfolio based on time, I can do that. Okay? You divide 100% any way you want to. If you're bored with this conversation, you can pick and choose your own portfolio here. But again, you're going to be changing the risk factors. You're going to be rebalancing those portfolios. And also, again, I know we're just touching on this. We have a whole hour-long session on this if you want to learn a little bit more. If you're really bored with this conversation, we have another option for those who this is kind of a hobby. So they do E-Trade, they do trading on their own. This is the self-directed brokerage account. So it's a small little paragraph on this page, but it's for someone who wants more selection of options. A lot of folks will say, I have enough options. Some people say, I want more options. Well, that's why we have the self-directed. It opens up to thousands of mutual funds, ETFs, and individual stocks. Also, someone who's looking for a specific fund that we don't have in the lineup, this would be an option for them. Now, you're going to keep $2,500 in the VRS first 2 pathways and trade $1,000 or more at a time. Okay? If you're interested in it, email me. I'll get you some information on the TD Ameritrade option. And then once you sign up, you'd have the portal to trade from there. All right, fees, very important. I have a lot of times people think they have free accounts. I had one lady, she said, I have a free IRA. Well, you still have operating expenses. My husband thought he had a free 401k. They don't directly charge fees. Well, did you ask what they indirectly charge? No, I didn't think about it, okay? Record keeping fee, $30.50 a head per year. That's how ICMA or C gets paid. Okay? The expense ratios, these are not ICMRC funds. VRS selects and monitors the funds that are offered. My husband's, if you look down here, were like 0.25 to about 1.75%. Big difference in 0.08% for your target date. So I do find a lot of people don't think to look at the operating expenses. A lot of times, too, I find if you're logged into your other accounts that you have, if you click on the fund, it'll pop up a fact sheet that you can find that information out if you don't have something like this. Okay? All right. So, is that clock on par? Okay, good. All right, resources. Hybrid website. On the back, in the last page of your trusty blue handout, is the hybrid retirement website. Okay? Just like I've been doing, I always make my sample notes. It can be confusing. You have two logins at one site and they're right next to each other. So a lot of times people only see the MyVRS login and they don't see the DCP. I would write in this blank space, MyVRS pension login, DCP investment login. Two different passwords, two different logins, but two different checks in retirement. But that's where I find a lot of folks are resetting their password because they went into MyVRS, wrote down VRS password, and then they try to use it on DCP. So DCP is your investment. MyVRS is your defined benefit side. When you come here under education, so you've got your City of Chesapeake private meetings, your one-on-one appointments we do at the library. Anything here are the public meetings. So, for example, DEQ in Virginia Beach is having an open meeting. When you go to the education, it will show you what's open to everyone, not just employer specific, but also our webinars. So our live webinars you can just do from your desk, do the investment session, or get a recap on this one. And we do it at least once, twice a month. Benefits, features and benefits series, those are the recorded on-demand videos. Also under investments, they've got recorded videos on each of the investments. So a lot of great information there. The other thing too is you have this countdown clock right now that says March 15th at 4 o'clock is the deadline for next quarter's payroll. So if I go in and I change from my 0% voluntary to 1% or 2 or 3 or whatever I want to do, it seems like it's taking forever. I get that phone call. I changed my voluntary. It's not changing. It's a quarterly change, so you won't see that until April. Okay? I still have people that will call me on March 16th to change their voluntary, and they just missed the deadline, and now they're waiting a whole another 3.5 months. Okay? So just keep an eye on that and understand what that means. Here's the MyVRS. So here are the two logins. Again, they're right next to each other, and when you're logged into MyVRS, you can see all your balances, so you think you're in everything. First time you go to each one of these, you're going to register and register online. MyVRS here, once you register, if you haven't already, does this look familiar to anyone? Oh, we have 5 more heads than I usually see. All right, so and I do see hybrid folks for some reason they're seeing only this login, but then they think they're in everything because it will show you your hybrid voluntary and your match. Why are they pulling that in? So if you're using the retirement planner, if you're using the benefit estimator, it's not going to just show you your pension, it's going to show you your investment account. But you can't change your voluntary, you can't view your investments, or update your beneficiaries on that side. So you really want to log into both of them. Here too, it'll show you the earliest you can retire unreduced. Okay? So under the VRS defined benefit side, they have this really new financial wellness. They've got some cool tools on there and videos. I have a 6-year-old. The one thing they showed me that popped out to me, and she's only 6, but the scholarship finder. So there's so many scholarships out there to find. They have a finder that you can type in different things and see if there's anything eligible for your kids or grandkids. So check it out. Under DCP, that's going to be your investment side. Once you're in, it looks like this. So the last piece that I handed out looks like this, and it has the screenshots inside. All right, so this is what it looks like when you're logged into the DCP side. People call me, I went to go change my voluntary. I don't see where to change it. Were you in MyVRS or were you in DCP? I was in MyVRS. Got to be in DCP. I was in DCP, but I still didn't see it. Did you go to the cash match side? That'll be automatic. You got to go to the deferred comp side and change your contributions. But what you change here increases what they put into here, or decreases if you lower it. Okay. Once you're in, it looks like this. So once I go into view account, I see this. I can change my contribution rate. It shows you what your current rate is. Couple other things I want to point out though. Managed funds is where you can change your investments. Just because I change one side investments doesn't change the other. So I want to make sure, and when you're logged in, it's kind of cut off at the header. You can toggle between your two plans and ICMARC. If you've got ICMARC through the city, you'll see that as a third plan listed in there as well. So you won't have to log into that separately. View beneficiaries. Make sure you check your beneficiaries. I've got a lot of times the MyVRS form is getting out there, but not the DCP form. So folks have done a beneficiary form, but only on the pension side. Go to the website, do it online. I'm not a big fan of forms. They get faxed, they get misspelled, they get miskeyed. You type the information yourself and enter the information and save it. Use your secondaries too. I've got a lot of times people list a primary. It's someone they travel with, a spouse, a young child, and they don't list a contingent. Who do you want to get it if something happens to all of you, right? And list them by name, very important. Don't just leave it to chain of command. It gives them more options on what they can do. So check that if you haven't already. It's also listed on your statements, but if you haven't noticed it, it's probably because it's really small and says no one on file. All right, so we've got our recorded webinars, our in-person meetings, our one-on-one appointments, and then we have, like I said, our local ones. So if you're not sure where to find that link, my cards are up front. If you email me, I'll send you the link. You can look at the open appointments from month to month and register for what works for you, and the investment videos. I'm really excited about the app, especially because they're adding this finger touch thing. I mean, how many passwords do we have in our head? So what you do is, and it's not on there, I think next month they're adding it, but on the app you can just log in right now. Hopefully soon next month you just put your fingerprint on there and it unlocks your account. That way you can look at everything on the go. You can update whatever you need to. So that's under VRS DCP. That's not on the pension side, the defined benefit side, but on the DCP side. All right, where I pointed out the website, you've got two different phone numbers. Why do I have two different phone numbers? Anything defined benefit related, you're going to use your HR office or call VRS. There is a counseling center specifically, that number's for hybrid folks, okay? So purchase a prior service would be a great example. Options if you're separating service, that kind of stuff on the defined benefit side. Defined contribution side, you can change your voluntary, you can change your anything you can do on the website, you can do on the phone all the way till 9 o'clock at night. But market closes at 4. So everything is all timing wise. The trick to a warm breathing body, you hit option 1, and then you can press 0 and get a live person. And then also you've got me locally for investment questions, stuff like that. All right, so we've got the website, we've got the handbook. I don't know if they're handing that out at New Hire. It's a big booklet, but you can always get the more updated recent version on the website. We got our videos we talked about. We got our webinars we talked about. So things to think about. Maximizing your voluntary contributions. What are you doing? Have you taken advantage of it yet? Once you're maxed out, consider doing the city's 457. Review your investments. Is the target date what you want? I have people working till 70 now. So 65 isn't working. They want to move their target date to 70. Check your beneficiaries. I know if you've been hybrid, you've been here for a while. I know they weren't handing out that form, so I want you to make sure you update it. But again, I'd rather have you do it on the website. Purchasing prior service, we talked about long-term care, life insurance, all those decisions you want to make. So, all right, well, I'll stick around for personalized questions if you have them. Don't worry, I'll turn off the microphone.